There's a lot of question marks about the WVU football team in 2025, but there's a couple of areas in particular that really stand out on paper as major concerns. We're going to talk about that here today on Between Ears. What is up, everyone? Scott Callahan here with another episode of Between Ears. And before we get started, as always, we ask that you give us a like and subscribe to our page here on our YouTube account that is at West Virginia on SI. If you're watching this video or episode of BTE on our website, please go over to YouTube, make sure you subscribe, get notification the moment that a new episode drops. And today, before we get into Big 12 Media Week, I thought it would be a good time to start kind of diving into the pieces of the roster. We've already talked about the quarterback situation. We're going to talk about it ad nauseum over the next couple of months leading into the season, but start hitting on some of the other areas of this roster, some of the areas that I'm most concerned with, some areas that I feel like are strengths, and we'll dive into all the different angles of the roster here in the coming weeks and month leading up to the year. But first of all, we're going to start with the greatest concerns. We've talked about maybe some of the biggest question marks or the biggest concerns for WVU as a whole. Had Eugene Napoleon on to talk about that, but today we're going to talk about the units that I feel the most concerned with. And really, it's one area. It's the big guys up front, the trenches, both sides of the football, offense and defensive line. To me, are the two biggest glaring question marks heading into 2025, but for different reasons. I think on the offensive line, you have the bodies there. You just don't know what you have in terms of the level of talent. Who's going to start on the left side? Who's going to start on the right side? Who's going to start at tackle? Who's going to start at guard? The center situation is pretty crystal clear. Landon Livingston seems to be the starter, but he's going to have some competition there. But you know who that competition is going to be, Carson Lee and some other guys as well. But as far as tackle, guard, right, left, I mean, I cannot for the life of me think of another situation like this where there's so many unknowns going into fall camp. And I mean, it's obvious. It's the transfer portal. You have a coaching change. Today's roster overhaul is much different than the one 6 years ago when Neil took over, and same thing when Dana took over, and so on and so forth. So it's definitely rare air. But offensively, I think you have a lot of guys that have potential. You got the two guys that come from Oklahoma and Texas, and Joshua Isosa and Malik Agbo. Agbo from Texas, Isosa from Oklahoma. I think those two guys have potential to be starters. Is it this year though? Like that's my biggest concern with those two because they haven't necessarily proven it yet. And for me to assume that they're going to come to Morgantown and win the job day one, not saying it can't happen, but it's a tall ask. And it's the same thing that can be said about Tennessee transfer Aiden Bussell or Bussell, however you pronounce it. I'm not really sure. We'll figure that out. Um, I just can't see him stepping in day one, but it's certainly possible. They have some offensive tackles coming from the lower levels, and Donovan Haslam and Mikael Clay. Do they beat out a Nick Cray at tackle? I mean, does Nick Cray even get reps at tackle? Again, this is such a shot in the dark. I feel like it's almost pointless for me to even go too deep into the offensive side because the truth of the matter is just nobody knows. Nobody knows where these guys are going to line up. But Nick Craig, Xavier Bosley, Tykees Crawford, those are the three guys that I would expect to get opportunities at tackle that have some experience. Again, Mikael Clay, Donovan Haslam could be in that mix as well. We'll see. LSU transfer Kimo Makanele, I think he's probably the most intriguing of them all because he was a highly recruited kid coming out of high school, had some big time offers, goes to LSU, probably thought he was going to sit there for a year or two, build, develop, and then hit the field and be a multi-year starter at LSU, and that just wasn't the case. Things didn't unfold that way. He actually ends up moving to the defensive side of the ball a year ago. Doesn't see much playing time there. Hits the transfer portal, flipping back to the offensive side here in Morgantown. So where does he fit into all this? I don't know. When we're talking about the overall skill set that he has, I think it fits perfectly in this offense. I also think he could probably even play center. I don't think it's something he's going to do. I think if anything, he's going to stay at guard, but he's an interesting one to watch. Does he hold off maybe somebody that's like a Cooper Young who is, extremely young, has a lot of development left to go, but maybe he's ready to take that next step. Wyatt Minor, a Youngstown State product. I mean, it is truly open competition across the board, left to right. I put out a couple of depth charts projecting the offensive line, and here's my most recent one, which I put up last week actually. So I have Nick Cray at left tackle, Walter Youngbear, arguably one of the best names in all of college football, the Tulsa transfer at left guard, Landon Livingston, as I mentioned, sliding there in at center, Kimo Makanele at right guard, and Tykees Crawford at right tackle. But again, there's so much competition across the board. I think really, and it's weird to say, I think left guard is really the only one I feel pretty confident about. Again, that's assuming, or excuse me, outside of Landon Livingston at center. That's the only one to me that I feel pretty strong about. Walter Youngbear's got a lot of experience. Agbo and Asosa, who knows if even they get opportunities at left guard. They may be getting opportunities at right tackle, right guard, center. There's no telling. This is me just throwing guys on the board here and trying to figure out what Rich Rod and Jack Bicknell Jr. are going to do. But if this is how it lays out, I would feel like Bear has a really good chance to lock down a left guard spot. Nick Cray's been somebody that the last coaching staff has raved about. I think is ready to take that step. Is he ready as a left tackle to start? Who knows? We'll see. But Tykees Crawford, Xavier Bosley, Mikkel Clay, Donovan Haslam. Does Haslam get opportunities at right tackle? There's healthy competition at tackle. So to me, I think there's several guys in the mix, and you want to find your best five, but you got to find the best five that fits together. And to me, it's gonna be something that spills into the regular season. I would not be shocked if we see multiple starting lineups in that first month of the season until they find the right five that can gel together and, of course, stay healthy. But this is what makes it a major concern for me. Yes, the bodies are there. I believe there is talent there, but to have so many question marks up front and not have any idea as to what it's going to look like is a huge, big concern, considering you like to run the football as much as Rich Rodriguez does. So it looks like a concern on paper. It may not be anywhere near a concern by the end of September. Who knows? There's really a lot of unknowns about this whole entire roster, so we could be wasting our time talking about all this. But as of today, that's what my big concern is on that side of the ball. Defensively, again, it's the guys up front, the defensive line. Now, this is a little bit different because I think there's probably not enough depth there. Here's some of the guys that they have up front to work with. Jamori Robinson is a heck of a player. Player of the year last year in his conference at UTSA, did a really good job. I think he's going to be a stout defensive player. He's going to be their ace, their fireballer. If Zach Alley wants to go and get after the quarterback, he's really going to be calling on number 0 there, Jamori Robinson, to go and get things done, to wreak havoc in the backfield. Eddie Kelly Jr. from Missouri, I think is an overlooked or underrated type of player coming in. I think he can make an impact. Big or great size at 6'5", 286. Taylor Brown, a true freshman that has a lot of potential. I've talked about him at length in the past. I think he's going to be a big-time player here. Is it in year one? I don't know. Corey McIntyre Jr. has had some injuries throughout his career. He's showed some flashes when he's been healthy. Nate Gabriel has to get more in shape, which I think he's probably done this past offseason. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays in this new scheme. Adam Tomzik, not really sure what to get out of him. The junior college transfer, Devin Grant, He's a rock steady player, kind of similar to Eddie Vesterinen. Asani Redwood, this is a huge year for him. I think this is a year he's got to take that big leap. And if so, then maybe he's an all Big 12 type player, if it's that big of a leap. Elijah Simmons hasn't played a ton of football coming up from the JUCO ranks. And then Brandon Caesar, true freshman, and Hammond Russell, who's been around the program for a while and is one of the few that has played a lot of snaps and logged a lot of snaps on the defensive side of the ball for WVU coming back. So, again, outside of Hammond Russell, Eddie V, and Jamori Robinson, it's a ton of question marks. Can Asani Redwood take that next step? Do they get something out of one of those JUCO guys coming up and that hasn't played a ton of football? I don't know. That's a huge concern. And if they can't stop the run, it's really going to be concerning, because I think the biggest thing about that group up front right now is I don't know where the pass rush is going to come from outside of Jamori Robinson. Everybody knows Jamori Robinson is going to be the go-to pass rusher, the guy that they really want to get after the passer. There's going to be double teams thrown his way. There's going to be tight ends chipping. There's going to be fullbacks chipping. There's going to be a whole lot of attention towards Jamori. And if they can't get a second or a third or a fourth pass rusher to come along, and then the run struggles happen, then it's going to be a very, very, very long first year for Zach Alley. He's got to have one of those two things hit. He's either got to be really good in hitting on those blitzes, or he's got to have a stout run defense. And I just don't think body-wise that they're there to really defend the run at a high level. So if I'm Zach Alley, I'm hoping I get that secondary, that tertiary pass rusher that comes along and really helps out Jamori Robinson, and you're able to kind of compensate for maybe giving up more yards than you would like or more explosive plays than you would like in the ground game. But we'll see. There's a lot of bodies there too. It's just probably not as many proven bodies as there is on the offensive line, and even there, that's still, like I said, maybe not proven, but you got more high-end guys on that end with Tykees Crawford and Landon Livingston, guys that have actually played in high-level football. Walter Youngbear as well, Kimo Macanele. So we'll see. But that's going to do it for us here today on Between Ears. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. And we will be back here on Sunday for a new episode. Take care.